A mother whose daughter took her own life at university calls for higher education institutions to have a legal duty of care.
I wake up every single morning and that's my first thought 18 months later. Has she really gone? And has this really happened?
Hello, a mother whose daughter took her own life while a student is calling for universities to have a legal duty of care and joining other parents in petitioning Parliament to legislate for it. Phoebe Grime from Cranbrook had been struggling with anxiety since leaving home. Her mother says parents need to know what level of support universities offer. Claire Starr reports.
We're stuck in our rooms. People aren't allowed to move home and come back here. Like, we're stuck here alone, and they expect...
Speaking out for students during the pandemic, Phoebe Grime from Cranbrook was 20 when she took her own life. Now her mother Hilary is campaigning for universities to have a legal duty of care for their students, supporting a petition to ask the government to make a change in the law.
A legal duty of care means considering a student's mental health with every decision that you make. I would have known whether the university were going to contact me or not. I would have known their standard of counselling. It's about making a uniform policy across universities, but it's also bringing all the universities up to a same standard.
The coroner at Phoebe's inquest said that there wasn't any point where things could have been done differently by the university.
I don't have any wishes to be made, 'cause I'm actually happy in life.
Sharing videos of his sister, Phoebe's brother Hamish.
She loved to laugh, she was always up for anything. She loved to surf, ice skate, and she was also really kind and compassionate. By no means do I think that the legal duty of care would have totally healed Phoebe's mental health issues, but they could have absolutely saved her life.
A part of my life and our lives is missing. It'll never be replaced. I wake up every single morning and that's my first thought 18 months later. Has she really gone? And has this really happened?
The government says that higher education providers do have a general duty of care and they are expected to act reasonably to protect the welfare of students. Universities UK, which represents 140 institutions, says that universities prioritise the mental health of students and staff, providing support services for those experiencing difficulties and working closely with NHS services.
I'm taking on Phoebe's voice. I'm going to do that for you, Phoebe, and I want to make her proud.
Phoebe saved 6 lives through organ donation. Her family hope that through her mother's campaign, she'll save even more. Claire Starr, BBC South East Today, Cranbrook.
Well, I'm joined now in the studio by mental health campaigner Ben West from Frittenden. Ben, thank you so much for joining us. Now, you lost your brother to suicide when he was just 15, a very tragic event, and you've campaigned ever since for greater awareness and support for youngsters struggling with mental health problems. Do you think it would make a material difference to students to have universities obliged to look after them legally?
Absolutely, and firstly I think what Hilary and what Hamish are doing with this campaign is absolutely incredible. Phoebe was an incredible girl, very kind, very caring. The fact they're continuing her empathy and her kindness and trying to give it to other students, I think is an incredible thing to do. In terms of the duty of care laws, at the moment, it's very confused. We heard there the government saying that universities do have a general duty of care. That's true, they do have a general duty of care. Just like, say, if you walk into Tesco, Tesco has a duty of care for their customers, that they can't cause injury or harm to their customers. So every place you go has a duty of care to whoever's using that facilities. What needs to happen, and what's really crucial for the safety of students now, is that we properly define what that duty of care is. There is so much confusion within government, within universities, within the governing bodies of universities, of what that duty of care means, and what that leaves is gaps. I speak to a lot of students through my work. I spoke to a lot of students that were very desperately unwell during lockdown, and it's given me an understanding of what's going well and what's not going well.
And what is going well? What could be done better to support them?
So again, it comes back to properly defining the frameworks. We talk about schools. Schools have a fantastic, very rigid, very well-defined safeguarding framework. They're the statutory safeguarding recommendations that all schools have to follow. If they notice that a child is at risk of abuse or at risk of injury or harm, they have to proactively protect that child. They've got a very rigorous, well thought out safeguarding plan.
But of course, sorry to interrupt you, but when children go to university as adults, I mean, they're still, just because you suddenly turn 18, it doesn't mean you're a fully formed adult, and they still need an awful lot of support. Might be their first time away from home.
Of course, and I think actually when people talk about university students, a lot of the time but they're adults. The argument there is actually in the workplace we have very, very, very strict duty of care laws. They're all adults, not even vulnerable adults, and we have very strict laws. There is this window period between 18 and 21 at university where you almost lose those protections that you had at school and that you would get in the workplace. We need properly defined safeguarding guidelines to protect people like Phoebe so that mistakes aren't made, and if mistakes are made, then people are held accountable to that, because accountability is really, really important here. I've spoken to students that have been failed because safeguarding guidelines were not followed, and actually we need to plug those holes.
And just briefly, Ben, that obviously the pandemic, the last couple of years haven't been normal in many ways, have they? That's exacerbated, presumably, some of these problems for youngsters.
Absolutely. Again, I've got an audience and sort of I'm very open and talk to a lot of people that are going through difficult times. During the pandemic, I had the awful experience of having to talk to one family and another group of friends that both lost people they knew. One was a brother and one was a friend. Imminently lost them out of nowhere, and I spoke to them and they were incredibly sad. Lockdown, I was thinking about this earlier. I went for a walk with my dog. My dog was born in lockdown. She's very nervous, and we refer to dogs born in lockdown as lockdown dogs. A lot of people do, because they're quite shy, they're quite nervous. We sort of understand the effect lockdown had on the development of dogs, but we're not as sympathetic with humans. And actually, a lot of humans, especially university-age people at the moment, have been really impacted in their developmental stage by lockdown, and we've almost sort of gone through it and got out the other end, and that's amazing, but sort of forgotten about the impact it has, and it does have a huge impact even today.
Indeed. We could chat all day. Thank you very much, Ben, for coming in and talking to us. Really helpful. Thank you. And if you've been affected by any of the issues raised here, you can get information and support by visiting the BBC's Action Line.